Well, welcome to another Small Cap Power discussion. I'm your host, Jim Gordon, and joining us today is Jim Mackenzie, President and CEO, Director of Viscount Mining Corporation, also the founder in 2010. Jim, welcome to this discussion with Small Cap Power.
Thank you, Jim. A pleasure to be with you today.
Pleasure to have you, sir. Lots to unpack and talk about. Jim, before we get to your two properties, let's talk a bit about, as we always like to do, a bit about you and this incredible team that you have put together at Viscount, which, if I checked correctly, have about 250 years of experience in the business.
Well, thank you, Jim. Very proud of the team that we have. I put the company together in 2010 when I acquired our first project in Nevada at Cherry Creek, and then built the board as we went public in 2013. The board has been basically the same since we started the company, which I'm very proud of. Led by Dr. Grant Devine, the former two-time Premier of Saskatchewan. Dr. Devine was very significant to the province as he presided over the privatization of potash and Cameco. And at the time, both were Crown corporations. When they went private, potash was at the time the highest valued company on the Toronto Exchange. Our directors, again, have been with us since the get-go. Bill McDonald, who is one of the top security lawyers in Canada. Andrew Gertler, who's had over 30 years executing M&A transactions in the private equity sector. Mark Abrams, who is our VP and Director of Exploration. Myself, of course, on the board. And Corey Foy, who used to be the chairman of Great Panther Silver, took it to a $600 million market cap on the NYSE in New York. And we have an incredible team of geologists. Harold Hoegberg is our QP, or qualified person. Harold was actually the gentleman who did the original 43-101 for our qualifying transaction when we went public with Cherry Creek. Harold at the time was working for Snowden. We also have Dr. Jamie Robinson, who is a very well-known and respected Nevada geo, and who has been part of many discoveries in the state of Nevada.
Jim, before we get to the specific properties, one last point. I've heard you talk, and I've seen interviews with you when you've talked about the importance of being in a safe, friendly jurisdiction, in this case, both these properties in the United States, which we will talk about in a few moments. Talk a bit about the importance of that, if you could.
We are very fortunate to have two properties located in the United States. As many of the viewers may be aware, there are political issues all around the world, and they certainly affect explorers, and more specifically, companies that are mining in different jurisdictions around the world. Being in the state of Nevada, which is one of the most friendly mining jurisdictions in the world, is a huge plus. In Colorado, mining is booming there. As a matter of fact, Newmont's Cripple Creek project, their mine, is about 60 miles from our Silver Cliff project.
You mentioned both the states where these projects are located in. Let's get to those. It's nice if a company has one flagship property. You have two. Let's start with Silver Cliff, Colorado, which has had some pretty impressive silver results. Let's walk our viewers through that property, please.
Well, thank you, Jim. And yes, we are extremely blessed to have two properties underneath the Viscount umbrella. Cherry Creek and Silver Cliff are certainly company builders on their own. So we're excited with the potential of both properties. Getting to Silver Cliff in Colorado, this is a very exciting district. Back in the 1980s, early 1990s, there was extensive drilling done on the property by two companies. In the 1980s, Koke worked in an area called the Passiflora, and they proved out 64 million ounces of silver. Again, this is historical, non-43-101 compliant. And at the Kate in the late 1980s, Tenneco proved out 50 million ounces, again, non-43-101 compliant. They were in the process of building a $35 million mill and putting the project into production as an open pit mine. This, I would like to let people know, was with silver when it was at $5 an ounce. What happened is Tenneco was owned by Tennessee Oil and Gas, an NYSE listed company, and they got bought out by a European conglomerate that had no interest in the resource sector. So the project got put into mothballs. What's been exciting for us is when we acquired the property back in 2015, we ran two very successful drill programs in 2016 and 2017. And the assays were absolutely off the charts. We drilled as high as 1,700 grams a ton over 6 meters. The rest of the drill results were extremely significant. I want to let the viewers know that this starts at surface and goes down to about 150 feet. So it is easy, or will be easy, to mine. We have drilled in 2020. We started our next phase of drilling. We drilled 10 holes. We are currently waiting for results to come back, although we did get our first hole, which was very significant. We drilled 99.6 grams a ton over 21 meters, or roughly 60 feet. Again, this started close to surface at 19.5 meters and went to 41 meters. And what was interesting is we drilled in the Kate East zone, and this hole seems to indicate there may be continuity in the Kate East zone from the main historical deposit that Tenneco proved out in the 1980s. As results come in, we'll be releasing them to the market. We also drilled one hole at the Passiflora that we're waiting for results to come back. But our main focus has been on the historical non-compliant resource that Tenneco proved out in the late 1980s. So the current drill program that started in October consisted of 10 holes, 9 at the Kate, 1 at the Passiflora. Our next drill program, our next phase, will be another 10 holes, and we expect that to start in February. Again, we're waiting for all the results to come in to make sure that we are in the right areas, and we want to continue to expand on the NI 43-101 that we put out back in 2017, which gave us inferred and indicated 12.7 million ounces of silver. What I want to point out that is very interesting is when our geologists were on the property in early October, before the drilling started, they were looking at the work that we did in 2016 and 2017. And they're actually very excited because we had a cutoff of 35 grams a ton of silver. And we believe that where the price of silver is now, roughly $25, as opposed to $16 back in the 2016-2017 time period, that we're going to be able to expand on the current NI 43-101 resource, as well as with the current drilling we're doing. We're hoping to have a revised 43-101 out in Q2, but we will continue to drill the property as long as we're hitting silver to expand on the historical resource that Tenneco indicated that was non-compliant, again, in the late 1980s. And we will continue to drill at the Passiflora deposit.
Jim, can you talk specifically about the drill hole K1601?
Well, that was an absolutely spectacular hole. That was 56 ounces of silver, or 1,768 grams over 6 meters, or about 18 feet. Within that hole, we drilled 14 meters, or roughly 30 feet, of 29.7 ounces of silver, or 924 grams, extremely close to surface. What was also interesting, Jim, when we drilled, we twinned a number of the holes that Tenneco had drilled in the 1980s, and they used what's called RC, or reverse circulation drilling, and we did core drilling, which gives you a truer reading. And we found on the number of holes that we twinned, our results were 100 to 300% higher grades than what they had drilled using RC in the 1980s. So again, this will help expand on our current 43-101.
Well, we've been talking with Jim Mackenzie, President and CEO, Director of Viscount Mining Corporation, also the founder. He put the whole show together in 2010. More information, it's viscountmining.com. Coming up in our next discussion with Jim, more than one, because they got more than one impressive properties. We're going to talk about Cherry Creek in Nevada. Jim, I want to thank you for joining us today, sir.
Thank you, Jim. It's been my pleasure.
Our pleasure too. And don't forget it's smallcappower.com, and make sure you check out the Small Cap Power YouTube channel. Give us some likes, give us some thoughts, your comments. We appreciate it. I'm Jim Gordon, and thank you for joining us in this Small Cap Power discussion.